York, and I'm so excited to be here with Susan Lachera. She is the founder and author of a beautiful blog called Solaris Modalis, where she shares a new way of looking at our star and sky. What's really interesting about this is I never thought of myself as being galactically connected or being able to see interesting phenomena in the sky. When I started working with Susan, she was able to show me through her photographs, which she takes consistently, of things that I didn't even realize could be related to galactic technology and lightships and wonderful things up there. And she really opened my eyes. The very next day, I went outside, I looked up in the sky, and I saw something. So I'd love to share Susan with you and have her share some of her photographs so maybe she can open up your idea of what is interesting in the sky as well. Welcome, Susan.
Thanks so much, Alex. That was a lovely introduction, and it's been really a joy to share these photos with you, and I'm looking forward to talking through them.
Terrific. So why don't we get started?
Okay, so this is how I first got started. I just wanted to show a couple of those photos. The way I started to notice the sky was that one day I pointed my camera and happened to get the sun. And what I saw was so interesting that I started to take regular photographs of the sun. So what you can see here in this photograph, for example, and let me just say that all of these photographs are taken in the San Francisco Bay Area. So that's, but I've traveled to other locations and seen similar phenomena. So
now let's just anchor the fact that I'm on Long Island. So you shared something with me. This is not space specific or geographic specific, that everybody has the opportunity to look up the sky where they are and be open to seeing things, and they will.
Absolutely, and in fact, what I have found is that it's really actually heart-centric. So to connect with these phenomena, I do that at the heart level. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to just become aware that this is even a possibility, to look up and to say, what is that? And that's a big part of the purpose of this blog. So
wonderful.
Thanks. So one of the things that I noticed with the sun photos was this interesting that there would be geometric patterns that I'd be seeing in the camera. I'd be seeing interesting shapes. Some of them seem to have a kind of a form or a density to them and being sort of translucent or maybe even made of something or even made of light. And then the other thing is that there are these reflections here. These are from the lens, from the camera lens, but it reflects how the lens is experiencing the photographs of taking the pictures of the sky and the sun. This next drawing here, is, or the next photograph, is another very interesting picture of the sun. So what I noticed was that the sun was emitting these interesting rays. It was looking different shapes than I remembered. As a child, I remembered the sun was basically a yellow ball, but now it was much more interesting than that. In addition, there were all sorts of orbs that were visible. I don't know if you can see them here, but these red orbs. And in this photo, it's very interesting because you can also see that the emission of the energy coming out of the sun, there's a definite pattern of lines.
Yeah, and I think you had indicated to me that the next photo you can see it even more clearly, that it's almost like a ripple pattern on the water spreading out. So the sun isn't just a light in the corner of our room. It's obviously emitting energy that we can see with our eye at this point, which is amazing.
It is, and you know, what I noticed as I started to take photos of the sun was that it was clearly changing day to day. here's another example where you clearly see a geometric pattern around the sun, a six-sided pattern. And the other interesting thing here is that you're seeing that same six-sided pattern is emitting. It's like the sun is sending this energy out through this geometry in this photo. Because I take so many photos of the sun and the sky, literally tens of thousands of photos, I can notice when there's a new shape, a new interesting wave pattern. So this is not a typical photo here. This is a six-sided pattern that the sun is making. That is.
Yeah, I love that you shared with me your bumper sticker, I break for interesting cloud formations. You're really breaking for interesting sky phenomena.
It's true. It was so funny to find that bumper sticker. Okay, so what happened is as I started looking at the sky, like we talked about, I started to see actual shapes of what appeared to be ships.
Yeah, and I'm just going to backtrack here and share that Susan was talking about an event that occurred where she yelled at the sky and she got some response.
I did. I was out on the deck and I sensed a presence. It wasn't the cloud formation I saw wasn't as clearly defined as this one where you see the beautiful, it's almost like a blimp-like shape, a beautiful clear shape. It seems to have substance. It seems to be three-dimensional. You see the light shining here and here, and then it's actually separate from the clouds. And then there appear to be sort of these emissions that are, where the ship is interacting with the clouds around it.
And as a seasoned scuba diver, I can share that from the bottom of the water, that's exactly what a dive boat looks like when you look up. So when I first saw this photo, I absolutely got not only the sense that it was a ship, but it actually looks really like a ship floating on water. So it was like, come on, guys, you can see us. All you have to do is look.
Yes, yeah. I did learn how to claim my personal authority after that first interaction where I was yelling about the problems of the world up to our friends and my friends up in the sky, and I learned to sort of take personal responsibility and authority. But that's a story for another day. So let's go to the next photo. This was really amazing. I was at the grocery store in the parking lot, and I looked up, and there was this huge ship-like shape right above me. And it's interesting because you, in the past, have mentioned to me how this looks so much like a Led Zeppelin photo cover.
Yeah, absolutely. This looks exactly, and in fact, the tree itself in the photo image would be the flare of the explosion, but the positioning and everything is exactly the same. So I nod to Led Zeppelin. It's a rock band for those of you who don't know.
Yes, and that's the thing. These entities, these beings that are in these formations, that what I found is that we can develop a heart-based relationship with these beings, and that they like to joke. That's one way of looking at it.
I love that they don't take themselves as seriously as we take them, and that is beautiful. And we open up to that friendship and love and heart-centeredness. It is something that's important. And you had mentioned this before, that every interaction that you have and every experience with the photography really feels good in your heart. And you want to talk about that for 2 seconds, that would be great.
Yeah, when I'm taking these photos, I get so excited and really full of joy. And every time it happens where I see an amazing shape like this, amazing tube shape that I saw in the sky here, I feel with so much joy and happiness and awe. So these are very positive experiences that I'm having when I'm interacting with this energy.
And what's interesting about this photo to me is that you could speak on this. Parallel lines and right angles don't exist in nature. So why would a cloud seemingly in the sky that's in interaction with the atmosphere show up as parallel lines?
Yes, and that's a good point, Alex. And if you look at it, it's two parallel lines here, and then you see the depth in the center here, where it actually, to me, how it appears is that this is actually, a tube shape that we're looking at from the ground. And these here, I'm going to erase that so that you can see it again. These emissions here from the cloud, to me, are the energies of this light ship that are sort of emanating off of the ship, and also so that it looks a little more cloud-like and not exactly like a tube up in the sky.
You can also notice at the back end, what I would assume is the back end, that there's a clear space, pretty much clear space of blue sky that indicates propulsion across the sky.
Yeah, and I mean, we could get into talking about like these wave patterns here behind it. We could talk about the 90-degree angle right here. There's a lot of interesting things that are going on in this drawing for sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, this was taken at a grassy park. There were moms and kids playing below. It was like a beautiful day in this small town, and just right up there, so low down, as you can tell, was this amazing light ship. So this is, for me, this was a stunning photo and a stunning day. I had been hiking around in a circle on a local hill, and I had seen this shape start to move across the sky, and I thought it would end up being a ship, so I kept an eye on it, and just to see it so distinct, so clear, and so low in the atmosphere was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I will speak to something. My background is in biology, and atmospheric conditions react to water vapor in a very distinct way. And here we have like 4 different things happening in the same space, and actually a division between what we would consider the background clouds. That doesn't happen in nature. So let's just be clear and like claim that.
Yes, and that's a good point. Let me put the pen on here. The first amazing thing is clearly this ship here. It's obvious that it's distinct from the rest of these cloud layers. My impression here was that this was an extraordinarily large vehicle, and it was manifesting very low down. The sky was absolutely filled with this quality of clouds, and what I feel is that this is a light ship. It's made of light. Its beings are higher. The beings inside are higher dimensional, so it's emitting a very high frequency, and that creates this kind of patterning in the sky. The other thing that you see here is sort of this interesting sort of a saucer shape here. So it's possible that there's more than one vehicle, and this saucer shape stayed up in the sky the entire time. This entity, this ship, moved across the sky in this form, holding this form, and I sat there photographing it over. I don't know, 2 to 3 hours.
But also from the casual observer, it almost looks, again, like coming out of the tail end of it, going up is exhaust.
It does. It does. And in fact, there's almost a, right here, there's this sort of a stream that's emitting. And later on in the day, it appeared to link with another ship. I have other photos where there's another, there appears to be another ship behind that, and that then they're touching. And that was really, really kind of interesting and cool to see as well. So
wonderful. So let's look at some more really cool things.
Okay. This is me taking a picture of the sky. Just to your point about that, what I feel when I'm engaging with these energies and the frequencies that they emit and what they embody. If you can, embody it at this level of vibration in the sky, it's happiness and joy. I'm connecting at the heart level. And one day, after I've been taking pictures for quite a while, getting so excited, I suddenly looked down and noticed that my camera had turned around while I was photographing, and there were and this was the result. These photos of me just looking just so happy and joyful, looking up at the sky with the sun just all in my face.
So the sky wanted to take a selfie with Susan, and that's what we got. Beautiful.
This is a very interesting. This is an interesting ship. I don't know if you can clearly see it. I'm going to quickly outline it here. This is a clear bell shape in the sky, and I wrote an article on this on the blog. I'm going to, and I've got some larger pictures of it here in a second. Now, the fascinating thing about this ship, first of all, I could not believe it. I was looking up and seeing an actual bell shape. That was amazing. The next thing was these amazing, these vibrations that appeared to emanate from the bottom of the ship and then interact with the sun. And there are also all sorts of other things going on in this photo. But let me show you the close-ups. So here's a close-up of the bell. Okay. And again, the energy lines here, it appears to be emitting and transmitting and interacting with the sun.
It also looks as if it's moving over the edge of the ship, and you can see it here very strikingly. Now, what did you do to make this look like that?
I just, I do not edit my photos, but just for this demonstration, what I did was I just changed the tint or temperature, saturation, one of those.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very interesting thing to talk about real briefly, is that all these photos on Susan's site, which is solarismodalis.com, are unedited, other than an occasional resizing of the photograph. So you're getting the raw data from the sky. She's not doing anything to these photos. They just are a representation of her experience with the relationship she has to the sky. So I think that that's really important to anchor.
Yes, yeah, and that's actually my point with the photos on the blog, is this is what I'm experiencing with my eyes. And so what I'm communicating is that if we look up, we're seeing visual evidence that there are pretty interesting things going on up there. Number one, that there are actual ships that are higher dimensional that appear to be visiting us, and even waiting for us to engage with them. So for the purposes of this video, I changed the temperature so that you'd be able to see, because it's amazing here. You can clearly see the bell shape again. Now, when I look up at the sky, because I remember many past lives and different galactic lifetimes and other lifetimes, what happened, and because I've been sort of sciencey in my past lives, some of my past lives, this is what I see. I see, and this is on the blog, but basically what I saw was, so here's the bell, it's creating sort of a connection with the sun, it's transmitting energy, there's sort of an impression of the cloak that the ship has around it, and so on the blog periodically we have a discussion of galactic technology and what some of these ships might be doing up in the sky.
And if you wondered where I fit into that, it's because I have a biology background, and Susan shared this with me, and I immediately saw what they were doing from a science, an earth science standpoint. And that's really important to speak about. As above, so below is not just a religious term. And Susan and I always have these wonderful insights from her perspective, which is much more galactic. And she sees here that they're transmuting. Do you want us to talk about what you think is happening?
Well, and Alex and I wrote this article together on this, what the ship appears to be doing, but basically what it looked like to me, from my memories of working in the galactic area, is that it's transmuting particles or nanoparticles. It's transmuting particles of energy in the sky, and transmuting them to a non-harmful state or a state of neutral, so that I'm in the benefit of, in my view, in our benefit and to the benefit of humanity's highest good, and to the benefit of Gaia's highest good, Earth's highest good.
Yeah, and when I saw it, I immediately understood that our scientific periodic table, which has all the elements that are based on Earth, that with the input of energy, elements can be shifted into another element that has completely different properties. So I immediately saw the connection, as I say, from our Earth science, which is maybe universal science. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so this is another example of taking a photo of a ship and how that kind of happens. So in this series of photos, I was driving, and what happened was I was scanning the skies as usual, and I noticed that there was this interesting shape up in the sky, and immediately I thought, I got to get a photo of that. That looks like it's going to be interesting. And as we got closer, what happened is, there we go, there it is, a little bit closer, and there it is, where the photo is resized and blown up. So what you can see here is that you have actual rectangles in this cloud, which is sort of, and then sort of a right angle down here. So that was really, really phenomenal to get this photo.
We've nicknamed this one the Dust Buster, by the way.
We nicknamed this one the Dust Buster because, again, what happens is when I look up at the sky and I see something like this is what happens. I just sort of see how the ship might be interacting with what's around it. So this is what I saw. So I just drew it. And if you compare this article, there's an article on this on the blog. But if you compare the various shapes that you can see in the cloud, what we kind of looked at was that it appeared to be taking in particles here. There was a chemtrail right under the ship, and in fact, very often they're chemtrails and light ships together. You'll see them, and it appeared to be taking it through this arm of the ship, and then emitting it as exhaust, as transmuted particles of energy.
And this is a very interesting thing, real quick, I want to feed back to you, is that you've noticed the presence of galactic craft, or, these interesting phenomenon in the presence of something that a lot of humans may not appreciate, which is pollution or chemtrails. And so you've anchored this idea that there's a relationship that is in alignment with what we would call our highest good. And you want to speak about that real quick?
Well, the energy and the entities of these ships, from my perspective, of the ships made of light, that they are a higher frequency, in a higher dimensional state of being. So from our perspective, we would perceive that more as like a spiritual state. Now, could these ships sort of descend in dimensional state and frequency and then sort of appear for us? I think they could if we were ready for that to happen, but that they would sort of be more of like a translucent type of an object rather than looking like a metal ship. So what I feel, I wrote an article on galactics, harmlessness, physics, and light ships. And what I feel is that there's an intention of harmlessness with these vehicles, that they're very aligned with the highest good of all, and they're sort of assisting while not impinging on our free will. So.
Yeah, I just thought that was important to bring through because, you've anchored the experience of it feeling very joyful, and there's a lot of stuff out there that isn't in alignment with that, but your experience has been joyful, and what you're seeing them accomplish in the sky is very supportive. So I just wanted to anchor that.
Well, I think it's important to say that I'm doing this work intending, with very clear intentions. I set my energy parameters very clearly over what I will engage with, over what relationship I will allow, with what level of frequency I will allow in my energy field and in my life as I'm doing this. And it's important to understand that we are the determiners of this as human beings, as sovereign human beings, in our personal sovereignty, sort of standing as an embodiment of our soul. That's how I see it. So I claim my authority in this space, and then I choose to connect at the heart level. So the frequencies of the heart, that energy of engagement is in a neutral place, in the center point. And I'm very clear about that the frequencies that I'm engaging with, the entities, the light ships, that I choose those that are in alignment with my highest good, with the highest good of all, with the highest good of Gaia, of Earth, and that are in alignment with universal law, or divine law. So I'm very clear about what I will engage with and what I do engage with, and this involves using discernment also. So I engage my discernment, and again, discernment isn't about thought, and it isn't about emotion from my perspective. And there are articles on this in the blog, but discernment is about having the heart connection, and then understanding in the moment that this is in alignment with my soul's path as an embodied human being.
Wonderful. Yes. So you're an active participant choosing the experience you wish to have. And that's beautiful. And everyone has that opportunity and ability as they practice with it. So,
Alex, you might mention your the way that you. I'd love it if you mention the way that you approach that that discernment.
Well, for me, I'm a long-time energy reader. I came in reading energy, and we can get into that at another time. But as I move forward on my path, and I observe something or think about something, I immediately either feel a heart opening, and that means that step forward is on my path, that step forward is into something that is part of my energy field and part of my path forward. If I feel a closing, a clenching, fearful, not emotions, it's a body feeling, and you're using energy to interpret that, then I know that that's not for my path. Now, Does that mean that that experience isn't valid for somebody else? No. Everybody is sovereign, free will, choice being on this planet. They get to decide for them. But for me, I listen to my discernment and I listen to my path forward. And it basically, as an active participant, tells me what it is I'm in alignment with and what it is I'm not. So that's just the simple way of looking at it, and that's the way we roll. So
I think that's beautiful. Okay, so here's another example of a light ship, and I think this photo is amazing. And in fact, while we were preparing these photos and I was talking through them with Alex, I noticed a second light ship that I hadn't seen the first time. But here, the obvious light ship is this right here. You have a fairly rectangular shaped pattern that's being highlighted in the clouds. So for me, what I call this is it's basically a cloaked ship. It has some mechanism of cloaking, and the interesting thing, a lot of these things tend to almost have like a trapezoidal form, is what I've seen, and I think that what it actually is that they're in a sort of a tube shape, that it looks like a rectangle from the ground. It was so cool in this photo to catch the bird flying like literally right at the moment it crossed the sun.
Woohoo!
So I just want to mention here, this is a reflection of the sun in the lens. I just want to point that out. And then the next thing was, as we were preparing these photos, what I noticed was that there was a huge light ship right here. I'm just going to point the two, the sort of the legs of the ship here. And then if you look up here, you see straight lines. And I'm drawing them as straight as I can here. But here is an actual point, like a triangle shaped point. Let me just erase that right there. There's an actual triangle right there that you can see. And as I was looking at this, what I realized is this is almost like a hangar door. Do you see here? There's some little rectangles of opening right here.
Yeah, and this is something that's interesting, and why Susan, inspires people to look back at their photos over and over again, because they keep on giving. And even for somebody who's used to looking at photographs and evaluating them, when they look at them again, they see something. And why you should sit with your friends as well and look at your photos, because we each come with a different perspective. We each come with a little bit of a different life. I tend to say we each live in our own world, but that's just me. And I looked at this photo with Susan. I saw what she was looking at, and we were both, well, wait, what's that up there? And then the discussion expanded. So, keep on looking, and just because you've evaluated it once doesn't mean it's not going to keep on giving to you. So that's a very important point.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing that I'd say about this is, people sort of ask, when are the ships going to arrive? Well, just really, if you take a moment and pause this video and just look at the patterning here in the clouds. Basically, look at these diamond shapes. You are seeing the underneath of a ship here. Yeah,
and these things don't occur in nature. I mean, let's just be real here for a minute. Squares, not natural. Right angles, triangles. Maybe you'll see a kind of a diamond-y shape every once in a while in a seed, but this is absolutely there.
Yeah.
So, and it's up to you to decide what that means for you. But for us, we're seeing ships.
Okay, let's see more
ships.
Let's see what the next one is here. Okay, now this is I'm going to walk through this because we've now looked at some very clear shapes in the sky. And what I want to show you now is a lenticular cloud that is sitting over the middle of San Francisco Bay. So this is incredibly low down in the atmosphere. In fact, it is. It's not much. I don't know how far above the water it is, but it's really not that far up. Now, I was sitting with someone who is very, very connected with the galactics and the Palladians in particular when I took this photo and we were having lunch.
Wait, before you switch, quick. We actually looked at this because Susan showed it to me, and I'm like, hey, there's a circular light ship in that picture, and she used it to show people how easy it is to be confused and faked. I was amazed at how she evaluated that, so definitely check it out on the blog at Solaris Modalis because it was very eye-opening, and we can move on from there. But I wanted to nail that because it was important.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it because I don't pay attention to fake things, and I didn't mention that this shape here is not a real UFO. We have a whole article on this on the blog, but it was actually very amusing because the restaurant that was on the water had these circular lights that do appear like a UFO type shape in the reflection. So I'm taking this photo through glass. Most of my photos I try to take every photo just, direct camera pointed at the sky. Once in a while I have to take it through glass. If it's, well, actually, this is the only photo in this group that's taken through glass.
Yeah.
So I thank you for pointing that out. That's the UFO is this thing right here, and we're going to see it in another second in a slightly different shape. It changed its shape. And now here you see it's in much more of a cup shape.
Yes.
And you can still see now my camera didn't capture the lenticular aspects as well, but you can see here that it is in much more of almost even a saucery shape in the sky. And again, up here you can see the reflections of the light. Now, for me, what I feel is that this is a huge mothership. It was so low down. I don't think that seeing lenticular clouds directly over a huge bay of water is common.
Yes, and lenticular clouds, if people are familiar with the beautiful photographs of like Mount Shasta or Mount Fuji, they tend to be at extremely high elevations, very, very close to the top of the stratosphere. So for them to be this low down, the atmospheric conditions don't support that. So it's important to note that.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah. It definitely seemed unusual at the time. And here you can see, now this is a really interesting photo. This is a photo later in the day. And now what's obvious here is this triangle shape. Okay. That was so cool to catch this in the camera. Now, what I'll tell you is that in this photo here, when we were sitting at the restaurant, while this was sitting in the sky, there was a triangle, a dark triangle shape that was very, very light, clearly like a cloaked vehicle sitting up in the sky the whole time that this large lenticular cloud was sitting here, which appears to be like a mothership. So basically, what you see here is I literally through the whole day for hours until sunset, I tracked these two shapes in the sky. And what you notice here is, if you notice here, these lenticular-like patterns in the sky, and then the triangle ship followed each other through the sky all day. Now here at sunset, when this photo was taken, basically it doesn't look like a saucer shape anymore. What's important to understand is that these higher dimensional and higher frequency sort of quote unquote vehicles or consciousness, it's like it's left a footprint in the sky. Like, you know, if you imagine the footprints walking on a sandy beach, the footprints are still there after the person's left. Well, it's sitting in a higher dimensional layer, so it's actually there. You can't see it, but you can see the footprints of the energy, which is these patternings.
Yeah, so that's very clear, and I love your analogy to the footprints in the sand. The human is gone, but they've affected the environment until something shifts. The ships, the light ships, the cloud ships, whatever you want to call them, have affected the atmosphere, and you can see their imprints. So that's very, very clear to me there.
That's cool. Yeah, and now the interesting thing about this triangle ship, which just wowed me when I took this photo and really like caught it there in the sunlight. If you look, you can see this glow, this highlighted glow around the ship, which is really interesting. The other thing that you can see here is, see here, it's almost like a jet stream behind.
Yeah. And I would also note the position of the sun, because if there was going to be a glow through, wouldn't the sun need to be behind that object? So that doesn't happen in nature, guys. So here we go again.
Here we go. So what I wanted to then show, this is a close-up of the triangle ship. This is so cool. You can see the glow here surrounding the ship. And what it appears to be, I mean, for me, what I feel this could be is like a cloak type of an energy that somehow surrounds, because even this it's in a triangle-ish pattern here around the ship. Now, the other really neat thing about it is here you have sort of the back of the ship, but look at this. Look at this. It's almost like the exhaust of a propulsion engine. So this is a different technology than the mothership that we just saw. You've got evidence here of a propulsive type vehicle, but one that appears to be cloaked.
And also what's interesting is, yes, that's a cloud, and yes, it's being hit by sunshine. Why wouldn't the sunshine right through the whole thing? Like, it's not like there's 25 clouds all piled up together blocking the sun. Let's stop pretending what we're seeing. The cloud isn't blocking the sun and making that dark space. There's something else there, and this doesn't happen in nature. Again.
Yeah, you know, basically the cloak is catching the sun.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like if I held a piece of tinfoil up that had that had been crumpled and then uncrumpled, and I held it up, it would reflect up in the sky. It would reflect the sunlight, and it would catch the light at those places where there were indents. So in a somewhat similar way, this cloak is sort of catching the light of the sun because of however that technology is constructed. It appears to do that. But you can see that it leaves evidence in the sky. It leaves evidence of the clouds reflect where there has been movement. And so where there has been propulsion, for example, and where there has been, you know, presence. And clearly this dark presence here, which is somewhat triangular shaped. So, I mean, it would be, it's just fascinating. And it's very, when I look at photos like this, You know, I think a lot of the discussion with UFOs has been, do they exist at all? And the discussion has kind of been centered on that without the ability to move off of that topic. But any person can start taking photos of the sky and start seeing that there's something up there. And when I take these photos, I call, oh, this is another one. I call with my heart. I look with my heart. So this was another interesting one, and it's slightly different because what you have here is this sphere, and then of course you have this sphere also.
So just point out where the sun is for us at this moment in the sky.
That's
not the sun that you just circled.
Right. Yeah. The sun is behind all of this. This is a close up of a photo that is on the blog. The title of that series of photos is "What Hides Behind the Sun." That's the blog post, and blue kachina is I called this right here the blue kachina. Mm-hmm. Because what I've noticed is that this blue sphere seems to show up near the sun. I've noticed that it shows up in the fall for me. That's when I see it the most often. So what I wonder is if this is like a celestial type body or a cosmic body that's in orbit around our solar system or around our sun. I don't really know, but it is blue. It'd be interesting to wonder if there's like a blue gas giant, or that's orbiting at some kind of a distance where it affects our solar system periodically. So, and I don't know why I can always see it better in the fall, but that's been the case.
Well, I always find one thing that's interesting is we, as humans, see only a certain light spectrum, and animals can see outside of that spectrum. But during the year, there is a different quality of light. And in the fall, most people will say, wow, this is a crisp fall day. Everything looks crystal clear. So why wouldn't you be able to see things that may be a little bit hazy and in the background more clearly when the atmospheric conditions are so vibrant? That's how I think. I think in the fall you can see for miles and miles. So.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And the other thing that I think about is that we're as a human race, we're elevating our consciousness, and I think that as we elevate our consciousness and as we become more self-aware, we're going to be able to see things that we haven't seen before. Our vision is going to be more inclusive of maybe broader spectrums of light. I mean, that's an interesting hypothesis.
Yeah, and I mean, the old saying is, what you believe, you can perceive. So I think that you're a lesson in that for all people. But that also doesn't mean that if somebody has a different experience that that's not valid. We all see different things in this world. Some people may see more metal ships. Some people may see more cloud ships. I think it would be nice for you to speak on that for just a brief moment before we wrap things up.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with what you're speaking about. From the perspective of quantum physics, there are alternate timelines, there are alternate realities. Why couldn't we all be living those at the same time together, where certain people are experiencing a slightly shifted reality than another, but we're all within the same spectrum that we can perceive each other and interact with each other. Some people might perceive these spheres as something very different. And some people, like you said, have had experiencing metal ships. I do not have that kind of experience. Some people have a broad range. There's a broad range of experiences with people seeing UFOs in the sky and other sorts of phenomena. And
yeah, I mean, I spoke to you about this before, but my mom in 1941 in the middle of England saw a glowing cigar ship in the sky. Her parents told her she was crazy, and the next day in the Leicester Journal, there were hundreds of sightings. So that was right after World War II. She was walking home from school. And my mom absolutely, you know, is Catholic and doesn't believe in any of this stuff, and she saw it. So our experience is about belief, but also not about belief. Sometimes we see things that blow our minds.
It's true. And what I believe is that each soul is here for their unique experience, and that souls have different experiences on the spectrum. And like you said, they're all valid, including, you know, from seeing metal ships to light ships, from not having good experiences to having very positive experiences. To a certain extent, as an individual, as we become more aware, there's something important about quantum physics, of principles that we can apply to our life, and that is the concept that we create our reality. And how is that a scientific principle? Well, quantum scientists have experience in their experiments that the observer affects the experiment. The observer affects the outcome of the experiment. I also have a friend who's an electrical engineer who told me stories about scientists and engineers working with silicone chips and holding in their mind, let's try and do it this way. And every time these engineers working in Silicon Valley were able to do that with these crystals, and they concluded that it was not a coincidence.
Yeah, and it's an amazing thing, that visualization, thought-focused reality gets into a whole slew of amazing possibilities for us as we use these tools, which is what they are, and apply them to our lives. And you do that so perfectly on your blog as well.
Thank you. And so we're the observer of our reality. So once we become aware of a possibility, we can make the choice that that's something that we want to engage with, that's something we want to create in our lives. So we're much more powerful than we might think as human beings.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So one last photo of this amazing, very large ship, and there we are. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Yeah, this has just been amazing. And as you can see, Susan and I, or Susan and anyone, can talk for a very long time about all the juicy stuff that's happening in the sky. I think all she asks is for you to look and keep an open mind and interpret what you see, because a lot more is happening than anyone would lead you to believe. Please take a visit over to Susan's beautiful blog, solarismodalis.com. You can sign up for her website, obviously sign up for her newsletter over there, where she shares a monthly update. And you could also follow her on Twitter at Solaris Modalis. So this has been a wonderful visit with you, Susan, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thanks so much, Alex, for your questions and for talking through these beautiful pictures of the star and sky today.
We live in exciting times, my dear.
This is Solaris. Thanks for watching today. If you would like and subscribe, that'd be awesome. It's been so great hanging out with you. And come on over to the blog at solarismodalis.com.